Good morning, everybody. Constitutional conservative candidate for Wisconsin Supreme Court, Justice Daniel Kelly, is our very special guest today, Thursday, March 23rd, 2023. Special thank you to some of our recent guests this month, including rock and roll legend Ted Nugent, Spooner Health CEO Mike Schaefer, Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany, and former Polk County Sheriff turned attorney, which was awesome, Pete Johnson joined Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald and I earlier this week for our latest Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy show. You can watch a recording of those and all of our live shows on our website at DrydenWire.com, on our Facebook page, or on our YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com/DrydenWire. But today we're chatting with and welcoming back for the third time on the show, constitutional conservative candidate for Wisconsin Supreme Court, Justice Daniel Kelly. Dan, good morning, sir. Welcome back.
Good morning, Ben. How are you? Thanks so much for having me on your show again.
I love having you back on. And, you know, you're getting close. This is your third time on.
Yeah.
After 5, you become an official friend of the show. However, I think that, I don't know if I should say when you win. I think that's what we're supposed to say, right? When you win. If and or when you win. I'm pretty sure a lot of Supreme Court justices don't do live chats with people. So for you, this is hopefully is the last time you ever see me.
Well, listen. If I win, and I'll never be so presumptuous as to tell my bosses, the people of Wisconsin, that they are going to vote for me and make me win. So if I win, I would love to come back and chat with you.
Oh, that's great. So
I want to get to 5.
What's that?
I want to get to 5. Got to get to 5.
Yeah, and maybe we'll get jackets. I don't know.
All right.
Or pins at least, or a sticker, whatever. We keep it on the cheap here. So, yeah, you were on in November. It was right after the general election last year. That was the first time that you were on. And then you were just on like 5 weeks ago, right before the primary. Congratulations. A little late for that, but congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So just where do we want to pick up? I know that you've talked a lot on those last 2 shows. We got to learn about justice, or I'm sorry, when you were the justice, that person, the Justice Dan Kelly. Then we got to learn about candidate Dan Kelly, and we've also got to learn about the human, the person, Dan. Yeah. So we've covered like methodology and a lot of that stuff. So I don't really know where we want to kind of take the show. As you know, we just kind of start talking about whatever. Obviously, we just had a debate. We could talk about that. I thought right before we started the show, I'd seen, I don't know if I'm watching the wrong channels or something, but a negative ad that was against you. So it just kind of got me thinking, wouldn't mind asking your thoughts on that. Where do you want to start the show today?
Yeah, so perhaps we could talk about the negative ads. I mean, this is something that has just really, really bothered me because you know they are such remarkable lies. I mean, and this is I don't think I've ever seen such a deceitful and dishonest campaign as my opponent is running. And you know, in some ways, Ben, I'm insulted by the lies that she tells. But I'm also insulted that she just doesn't seem to put any effort into it. I mean, come on. If you're going to lie about me, try to do a good job of it. I mean, you know, it takes like 5 minutes on the internet to figure out that she's just a serial liar with all of these ads. So I'm extraordinarily disappointed that I am not worth the effort to put in a good lie.
Okay, well, that brings up... Okay, let's put this in context here. So I kind of view like negative ads and like there's 3 kinds that fall under the umbrella of a negative ad. And it's just my opinion. One would be it's true. Because let's face it, there's some things that, like if I ran for something, it'd be like, well, Ben Dryden was, did this stupid thing. And I'd be like, yeah, I did. Yeah. That was dumb. Yeah. Right? If I had a chance, when I was younger to make a good choice or a bad choice, I'd always make the bad choice. So I totally get it. It'd be embarrassing, but I get it. But it's true. It's still under the negative ad, but it's true. The second one would be the out of context, where it's, well, I mean, yes, maybe, however, no. So it's like that middle ground, and I get those. And then there's just the false ones, which I don't know, like don't we have someone that oversees this stuff maybe? Like some of these, it's like, but I even know that one isn't true. I don't know why there isn't a law or something that says, no, you can't do that. And apparently you just can. So of the ads that you have seen against you, which like 19 out of the 20 ads I see seem to be targeting you in a negative way. So they must have a lot of money for that, or again, I'm just watching the wrong things. Do any of them, do you think, fall under the true? That, yeah, it's true.
Yeah, no.
None of them. Oh, okay.
Not a single one.
Okay. And how many of them, or maybe a percentage-wise, are out of context? That it's true, but not?
Yeah, I don't, I mean, it depends how we define out of context. So, so I would say actually the way I would define it, none of them are out of context. They're just all fabricated. Now, what they do, a couple of them take a germ of truth. So, for example, let's look at the one where she says, Dan Kelly is a corrupt monster because he represents child sexual predators. And look at that. All right. So when I was the first law firm I was at a law school, I was assigned the Spalding cases, and they had been accused of child sexual molestation. And I handled a couple of pretrial matters on that before I left that firm and went to the firm where I would spend the vast majority of my career before I went to the court. So the ad says that I defended them at trial. And that's just not true. And here's where the sloppiness comes in. This is a matter of public record that is accessible to literally everyone in the world. If you have an internet connection, you can go and see that I handled a couple of pretrial matters, and that was it, and that I did not defend them at trial. And then it was just, and then from that point, so the kernel of truth is that I was counsel of record for the Spaldings for a short period of time. But everything after that in that ad was just a flat out lie. I mean, she of the sort of just making it up out of whole cloth. So I didn't defend him at trial, and then it's just, and frankly, it's disgusting. She suggests that the only reason that I would take such a case is because I like the crime of which they were accused of committing. Now, that is the technical term for that kind of statement, Ben, is that it is stupid. That's the technical term. And I mean that in every dimension of that word. There's no intelligence behind that accusation. There's no reasoning, and there are no facts. So it's not true, but it's also slanderous, right? To suggest that someone approves of that kind of crime. But then it's not just slanderous of me, it's slanderous of all attorneys who handle criminal defense cases. To suggest they do it because they like the crimes their clients are accused of committing is just ridiculous. And I can't imagine a responsible jurist saying anything like that. But I think Janet's just not a responsible jurist. So that's an example of what I would say is just completely false. It starts with a correct premise. I was counsel of record for a short period of time, and then it makes up everything beyond that.
Yeah, so that's beyond the out of context. I mean, you could, maybe a part of it that would be applicable to, but the rest. So, and maybe you don't know this part. Maybe that'd be more of a question for like anybody's campaign. So, again, don't people like oversee some of this stuff, or you have to get it approved, or it has to be fact based or something before you can do it? Or does that mean literally anybody, like you, could just, say whatever you wanted, or maybe it's because some of these ads aren't actually from a campaign. It's from, outside source, and they're just there to help and support. But aren't there rules to this?
So there is a rule to this, and it's called the First Amendment. and it's, and sometimes I got to tell you about it. It's painful. She's lying about me, but I'm a public figure. There's not a whole lot that I can do about that. And so there is, however, oversight of this, and this goes to my my entire understanding of how the relationship of the people of Wisconsin and those in office functions, and what our relationship is. So the people of Wisconsin oversee this, and the question that is going to be before them on April 4th is in no small part whether they approve of this kind of garbage that my opponent is saying, and it's up to them to decide. And it really only could be them, because the authority that we use on the court belongs to them. It's only on loan. And so the owners of that authority are responsible for watching how people use that. And if someone like my opponent is out there just spinning one lie after another, that's for the people of Wisconsin to decide whether they approve of that. And if they approve, well, that's how it works.
Okay. I mean, I get it. There's the politics part of it. And you know that, obviously, going into this isn't just a statewide race, and it's not just Wisconsin eyes on it. The nation is paying attention to this race for various reasons. Yeah. And you get it. It's how it works. I think it's silly for anyone, not just anything against you, but for anyone. You can't say things that just aren't true. I feel like it needs to be more than you're saying that this is the oversight is Wisconsin voters.
Yeah,
that's not really that's not a great answer. It's the answer,
I mean,
but I feel like there should be somebody doing that. But I want to ask you though, this going into it politically and as a candidate running for an office, partisan or nonpartisan, it's irrelevant. But personally, when you see these, because you watch things and you see them, the half of you has to be the politics, man, or it's a campaign, I should say. That's how it works. But isn't there another part, the human part, the damn part, that's going, really? Does it affect you emotionally at all, or your family? That it's
Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much for asking that, because this is insanely offensive to me, and to my family as well, because they know that my opponent is just telling a pack of lies, and she's spending millions of dollars to try to spread that around. But I'd like to explain why it's so offensive to me. I mean, I suppose maybe I should be a politician, have a thick skin, let it roll off my back, but I don't. And there's a reason for that. So, when I was growing up, our family didn't have a whole heck of a lot. I mean, I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters, and my mom and dad had to stretch the dollars pretty thin to make it from one month to the next. So I still remember one day I was a teenager, and my dad sat me down and he says, now, Dan, when I'm done with this life, I'm not going to have a whole lot to leave you, but I'll make you this promise. I will leave you a good name. Well, a year after I graduated law school, his comments came to pass, and he didn't have much to leave me. A couple of cufflinks and a broken pocket watch, but he left me a good name. And I've treasured that my whole life. And it has been my goal to pass down that good name to my children. And now I've got a serial liar like Janet out there spending millions of dollars trying to trash my father's legacy. And that makes me furious. I mean, this is inexcusable. There is no way that it should be acceptable for someone like Janet to spend her time and her money and her resources going around trying to destroy someone else's character as a means of reaching political power. I mean, but like I said before, it should not be acceptable. But the people who decide whether it's acceptable or not are the people of Wisconsin. So on April 4th, they're going to look at this and they'll look at her serial lying, and they're going to decide, is it okay for someone like that to try to trash someone else the way she has? Whether it's okay to try to trash my father's legacy, whether it's okay to be a serial liar and then be on the Supreme Court of Wisconsin. Now, I have my view of what the answer to that ought to be. But you know what, Ben? My answer to that question doesn't amount to hell of beans, because it's not my judgment to make. That's a judgment that belongs to the people of Wisconsin. And if they want that on their Supreme Court, I can't quibble with them. It's their decision to make. Now, I don't think it would be a wise decision to put her there, but it is definitely within the authority of the people of Wisconsin to decide that maybe they want a serial liar on the Supreme Court.
It's interesting that you had brought that up. My father, Terry Dryden, he was a sheriff here in Washburn County for 28 years, retired about 4 years ago. And he only gave me 2 pieces of advice when I graduated high school and I was moving out. He goes, now remember, Ben, and these only 2 things he told me was, 1, remember, it's not what you make, it's what you spend. And I didn't understand what that meant at the time, but that was so
you do
true.
now, right?
Yeah, I don't. And the second thing is, the only thing you have in life is your last name. Make it a good one. So it echoes what you were saying. There's something about fathers telling sons, something about last name, man, because that sticks with us forever. So make it a good one. Now, I didn't for a while, but I rebounded really well. So there was a debate. Unfortunately, there was some, at least on our end, when we were watching it, there were some audio issues, so I couldn't hear a couple of the questions, but you just had a debate with your opponent on Tuesday afternoon. So I watched it live, and then my wife and I watched it last night. So just firstly, takeaways from it. How did you feel? Actually, when you go into this, are you nervous? Because my understanding is like this is the only debate that she'd agreed to, if I recall, and I don't know if that's still accurate. So, but when you're going into it, it's like, okay, I got one shot. Don't screw it up. Are you nervous going into something like this?
Well, there's always going to be a little bit of that, right?
Sure.
Because it's high stakes. And, and I think it would have been better for both of us, frankly, to have a series of debates. And,
Agreed.
It would have given her a little bit more of an opportunity to get comfortable in doing this sort of thing. Now, I've been doing debates for a long, long time. I mean, I was a commercial litigator before I came to the court. And so I got paid to do debates by my clients, and I love doing them. And I presented several cases to the Wisconsin Supreme Court before I was appointed there. And so, I have some experience in that. But, others don't. And I think it showed. And so I think that, if we agreed to a series of debates, I think Janet would have gotten a little bit more comfortable with the process and perhaps would have done better than she did. But my only concern really going into that debate was I wanted to make sure that I could be able to answer questions inside of 60 seconds. That's what I was nervous about.
And you did great, by the way, because that stuff freaks me out. Like I watch like the ESPN Pardon the Eruption, and they got this little countdown, 2.5 minutes, and then ding, there's a bell, and they keep talking, and it drives me crazy. Like I have to mute it because I'm like, no, time is up. You have to stop talking because I'm a rule follower.
Yeah,
so it drives me nuts. Right. But it was great because I was watching you, and both of you, and you would always look down, and you could see that you were looking at how much time do I have left, and you'd always wrap it up at the end. I'm like, thank you just for doing that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's just a matter of basic respect for the people that put together the event. Now, I could have wished for more time because me, I can't say hello inside of 60 seconds.
It's kind of, I don't know. When you go to the other ones, so I saw, or maybe it was a story or somewhere I'd seen that you had agreed to go to other debates.
Oh, yes.
But she didn't show up, but you still went.
Yeah.
So do they still hold you to the 60 seconds? Like, yep, time's up.
So here's, no.
Oh.
So, we were invited to over a dozen debates. We've accepted all of them. And we were hopeful that that this campaign between the primary and the general election would be a continuing conversation with the people of Wisconsin so that they could really get a sense of who we are as individuals, as jurists, what our judicial philosophy is, and come out from behind the slick packaged ads so people can see who you actually are.
Agreed.
And so, that was our objective, and we still stand ready. I'll debate her anytime, anywhere, and I'm happy to do that because I do think it's important for our prospective bosses to know who they're hiring to be their servant.
I was speaking with I'll say like I don't know how to define, a political insider maybe. Someone in Wisconsin that is in tune with the political part, polling stuff, campaign stuff. It isn't anyone on your or Jan's campaign, just someone who's very in tune with this. And it was about a month ago, and this is, I think, when it first came up about the debates. And I think that's when it first came out that she only agreed to one debate. And I'd asked this person, what is that usually a sign of? And he had said, well, typically it's going to be the person who's probably feeling the most confident of winning is probably going to be the one. Now, not necessarily in this situation, but just typically that's how it works. Feels the most confident they're going to win. Maybe like internal polling shows they're leading or likely going to win. So, you don't want to really screw it up. And it's the other one that says, anywhere, anytime, because they can only benefit from this. After the debate, it was actually yesterday morning, I texted this person and I asked, so do you think this was wise now? Because it looks like some polling is showing that you're within the margins, polling around even now.
Yeah.
Was this wise that, this one could backfire? Because in this case, according to this person who is not a part of Republican or Democrat, said didn't do super great in the debate, she actually would benefit from another one.
Yeah, I think she would. I mean, and if for no other reason that maybe she would be a little more comfortable with the process of doing a debate, and then maybe we could get a clearer sense of how things stand with her. But the other side of that is that maybe that's why the performance on Tuesday, maybe that's why she was not agreeing to debates. Some people just don't have a facility for that sort of thing.
I get it. Was there anything during that debate that you learned about Janet that you didn't know about her before?
I don't think so. I mean, I've heard it all before. I mean, there were a couple of surprises, not necessarily learning something new about her, but some surprises. So, for example, when I called her out on the light sentencing that she was doing, and one of the reasons that I think that those sentences were problematic is not necessarily just because they were inexcusably light, but because of the reasoning or lack thereof that went into imposing those sentences. So in one of the cases in which a man had raped a 15-year-old, and she decided to give him no prison time at all because of COVID, she said during the debate, well, that's just a flat out lie. I never said that, and I would never say that. Now, I know there's a website called No Jail Janet, and they put together shortly after the debate, because Janet was asking for fact checking on the debate. And sometimes you got to be careful what you wish for. So they did a fact check on her. And so when she said, I never said that about COVID, they got the transcript from the sentencing hearing and put it up. And there, everybody in the world can see, yep, that's exactly what she said. In another case when she gave an inexcusably light sentence, and I said, well, in the sentencing, you said that he was a good man and that he was not a danger to society after having raped his cousin. She says, well, that's not true. That doesn't sound like anything that I would say. And again, that No Jail Janet put together the fact check and again showed the transcript so people could see verbatim that that's what she said. So I'm surprised at the sloppiness once again of the lies. It's not just that she lies; it's that they're sloppy. So that was surprising. And then this was revealing in a way, I suppose, to me. She's been going around the state scaremongering and saying, here's what it would mean for Justice Kelly to win. And sometimes I think she actually forgets that I've served on the Supreme Court and I have a record, and that the scaremongering has no basis whatsoever. But never once in the debate, and not once so far in the entirety of her campaign, has she ever pointed to anything I've done on the courts and said, that's a problem.
See, that's where I would probably go. Now, I'm not a campaign expert, but I would just find something, because How could you deny it? It's right there. You did it.
If it's right there.
So just go after anything on there. Like, pick anything and twist it as much as you want. I don't care, but I've always felt like that's what I would go after.
Well, yeah, and this is so. I put a lot of work into the opinions that I wrote. I'm proud of each and every one of them. And I wrote them to be exceedingly clear so that it would be next to impossible to misunderstand what I'm saying. And so, it's part of the reason why on our campaign website, justicedanielkelly.com, I've listed every single opinion that I ever wrote as a Supreme Court justice, whether it's for the court, a concurrence, a dissent, they're all listed there. Because I want the people of Wisconsin to know exactly what I did with the authority they loaned to me. And so they can go and look at those opinions and then grow confident that in each and every case, I did what they told me to do through their Constitution. And that is to simply use the law to resolve their cases without regard to personal views or personal politics.
By the way, I've stolen your word methodology, and I'm using that for myself now at DrydenWire.
Good.
Because I didn't have a word for it before. So, because I need to always take, because DrydenWire, we don't lean right or left. We don't write political articles. We treat everybody the same and fairly, etc. But when let's say like Will Martin, who I've said personally, that guy's just legit. He's an outstanding human being. He is. And I met him here in Spooner. It was like a meet and greet. It was like 2 blocks away. I didn't go down for a story. I'm like, hey, he's right there. He was on our show once, so I wanted to go down and say hi. It was a couple weeks later, then the campaign said, he's going to be in your area again. You want to go and cover it? It's, okay, hold on. The first thing you have to think about is, have I ever done this before? Is there any precedent for this? And no, there isn't. I've never done it. Okay, doesn't mean I won't do it, but now I have to go to the next step of, okay, that means I now have to commit myself to doing this every time someone else comes, not just because of someone that I know. Well, I can't do for, all right, so it's got to be what, 30-mile radius? Is it for assembly and senate? What about a mayor's race or a city? So I'm trying to create all of this. I need this thing. So all I have to do is just look at this, but I never had a word for it before because I love Will Martin. I would love to have done it, but wait a minute, hold on. Is this what we've done? Is this how we want to commit going forward, doing that? But I never ever had a word for it. So after you would explain, that's obviously in a very loosely similar way of how you've come to some of your opinions and conclusions about this process to remove your personal feelings and views on things.
That's right.
I love it. So now I'm just totally saying it's my idea. It's called methodology,
there you go.
Folks.
Take it. It's all yours. Yep.
What did your campaign tell you after the debate? Did they come to you and say, man, what are you doing? Or is it, man, you killed it?
Yeah. So well, Ben, it's hard for me to comment on myself or tell what other people have
That's
told
why I'm
me,
asking you, what did the campaign tell you?
Yeah. So they were very pleased with the debate. Yeah.
All right. And you've said, even during that debate, that, or I think they brought it up, that you didn't want to make this personal, or maybe it was you, I can't recall, but you've said that on the show too, that I'm sticking to this and this, I'm not going to go personal. Is there any point during this, while you were on in November, so it's been 120 some days ago, 4 months ago, was there any point during all of this where you thought, maybe that's a bad strategy? Maybe I should rethink it. Or maybe your campaign said, here's the thing, Dan, we like, your, hey, I don't want to do this, but we're not, we're trailing here. Yeah. We're going to have to rethink this. Were you ever tempted to, or did you ever have a moment of doubt that maybe we should go a little different direction?
I've never had any doubt about it at all. I've received, I won't say from whom, but I've received a lot of advice about how to run a campaign. And there are a lot of people that want me to do negative personal attacks on Janet. And I won't do that. Especially there's been some allegations that have come to light in the last, week or so.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna use that. I think it's inexcusable to do that sort of thing. I remember when Brett Kavanaugh was going through Senate confirmation hearings, and there are people who came up with allegations from when he was young, and they brought them out and trotted them out like they were true, and tried to use that to destroy him as a character, as a person, tried to keep him off the Supreme Court. And as it turns out, eventually it came to light that those allegations just weren't true. And I'm not going to do that. One, because, I think one of the things that made me an effective attorney is I was punctilious about what I said.
And what does that mean for people who don't know what that word means?
Very, very careful, exceedingly careful. Yeah. So I always wanted to make sure that whatever I said was true, that I had facts to back them up. And I think it's also what made me effective as a Supreme Court justice for the same reason. I will not say something that I do not know to be true. And so far, these allegations are just that. They're allegations. But beyond that, I don't think it's appropriate at all to try to tear down someone as a person as a means to acquiring office. I mean, Ben, if I were guaranteed today that those allegations were absolutely rock solid true, and that if I used them, it guaranteed me a win on April 4th, I still wouldn't use them. I don't want to win with that. I want to win this race because the people of Wisconsin look at me and say, that's a jurist. That's someone who's committed to applying the law without respect to his personal views and personal politics. And that's what we want on the Supreme Court. That's how I want to win. And if I can't win that way, then I'll take the loss.
You had said that you find that to be inexcusable. Could you clarify? Does that mean you, as a candidate, it would be inexcusable for you to use that, which you just did, or does that have anything also to do with anyone that's reporting on this? Or is it that's different? Like, you do what you want to do. It's just for me in my campaign and how I'm running. Right. It's inexcusable for me to do it, but you guys do what you want.
Yeah, it's inexcusable for me. So it's reporters are going to do what they're going to do, and I would always caution reporters to be careful that that what they say and do is true and accurate, because things like this. If those allegations are true, that's just damning. Yeah. But what happens if they're not, and you float them out there anyway, and then the damage is done? You can't retract the damage. So I think this is fair for the media to investigate.
That's their job. Yeah,
that's their job. And so I'm not gonna speak against them doing that. But for me, as a person and as a candidate, it would be inexcusable for me to do that.
Mike Schaefer had put up, and I had on the screen, that he finds it impressive that Mr. Kelly refuses to stoop to personal attacks, considering the personal attacks he has incurred in the past few months. But here's the story behind the story here, Dan. That's Mike Schaefer. He's the Spooner Health CEO. And I think this is his way of reminding me I'm supposed to play a commercial. So we'll be back in 15 seconds after commercial from Spooner Health.
Action surveys and in conversations with patients, they appreciate the fact that staff got to know them. Staff really took their preferences into account, and they just feel grateful that they are being cared for as a person.
To learn more about our services, visit spoonerhealth.com.
All right, there we go.
That was a very smooth transition into the commercial. Well done.
That's awesome. Renee says, I want to say thank you for being on the show today. Plus, it shows that maybe us folks up here mean something to you. That's the thing, too. Like, I have seen you up here, and maybe I'm just a part of the wrong crowd or something. And I don't know. I'm sure your opponent has been up here. And someone had asked us not long ago why we haven't had your opponent on. And I said, well, that's not how we do it. Candidates have to ask to come on the show. We don't ask. That's going back to like that methodology. I need something that I'm not picking and choosing. Yeah. It's, if you want to come on, we've never once said no to any candidate, ever once. So either they're not aware that we exist, or they are and don't want to. I don't know the reason why. It's not for me to decide. Yeah. But you have been up in our area quite a bit. I've noticed. Yeah. And we all know that nobody cares about us up here.
Okay.
So why do you come up here? It's like a waste of your time, right?
I love it. I love it up there. So here's the thing. So I was a couple of weeks ago. We spent a long weekend up north, and I was telling folks on the way up that I get happier the further north I go, and so by the end of the weekend I was real happy. We were up in Webster. And it was just delightful. So I love spending time.
Wasn't that the one you drove in? Because I knew some people that went there. Charlotte Police Chief Dave Wilson, he sent me a picture of the two of you. You guys got a picture there together, and a couple of others. Wasn't that during a snowstorm?
Yes, it was. There was a ton of snow. So it's almost like one continuous blizzard the entire time we were up there. It's just and the roads. I thought for sure we were done for a couple of times.
That's awesome.
The roads were a little messy, and so we did a little bit of fishtailing as we were driving along, but it was a delight to be up there.
So the election is in 12 days.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks from today, so 2 days after the election, 2 weeks from today, you've won the election, and a reporter comes to you and asks, why or how did you win that election? What would you say?
Well, should that happen, the answer is going to be that the good people of Wisconsin settled in, took a hard look at the candidates and what they expect of their court, and concluded that they want a jurist and not a politician on the court. This is one of the most remarkable things to me, Ben. I thought that we would be having a conversation about the things, a conversation in the campaign between Janet and me. I thought we'd be having a conversation about what it means to be a good jurist. So we talk about constitutional issues. We talk about judicial philosophy. We talk about the rule of law, what it takes to be a good and effective jurist. I thought that's what the campaign would be about. but all she's wanted to do is talk about her personal politics. And of course, that has nothing to do with the work of a Supreme Court justice. And you know how I know that, Ben? Because I've already been one.
I do know that. Actually.
So
I knew the answer to that one.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, well, we'll have a great conversation about that, but she just chosen not to. Mm-hmm. So if we win, I think it'll be because the people of Wisconsin say we want a jurist on the Supreme Court, not a politician.
And same question, but you lose. And you get asked that same question. So instead of the good people of Wisconsin, now it's, well, Wisconsinites are idiots, right? That's what you say?
Then the answer will be the good people of Wisconsin
wanted a politician.
They wanted a politician on the bench. I mean, that's really what this comes down to.
Sure.
And it is their choice to make. Now, I have, I have an idea about what the answer ought to be, but that's my thinking. And like I said before, that doesn't amount to a hill of beans when it comes to this election. This is for the people of Wisconsin to decide for themselves. So I've often said, that all the authority to create and maintain governments in Wisconsin belongs to the people of Wisconsin. And all the power to decide who sits in the seats created by the Constitution belongs to the people of Wisconsin. And that's an enormous amount of power. And so I've learned from Spider-Man movies that with great power comes great responsibility.
That's right.
And so this decision is not my responsibility to make. And it's not my responsibility to try to force people in Wisconsin to make one of those two choices. It's for them to decide. It's for them to research both of the candidates. It's for them to decide who they think will serve them best as a servant on their Supreme Court. And I'll abide by whatever that decision is. And if they decide they want a politician on the court, I might disagree with that, but that's their choice to make.
You know, my favorite part of that debate was when whatever it was, they answered, and then you had said something, and then it went back to your opponent and said, 30 seconds for rebuttal, and the response was, no, thank you. Like, just from a campaign standpoint, I'm like, don't ever say no. Use all your time about anything. Yeah. Talk about, I don't care.
Yeah. Here's one of the first rules of debating. When your opponent is digging yourself a hole, don't get in the way.
I yield my time to my opponent.
Yep. I was actually thinking, honestly, Ben, that I would do that. I said, no, you keep going. You use my 30 seconds.
She can use my 60 seconds. Just keep on talking.
Keep on going.
Oh, that's great. All right. Is there anything else that you wanted to make sure that we talked about that we didn't get a chance to talk about? There's 12 days left. Are you just in, coasting mode? I saw a poll yesterday. I think I saw it on Twitter, like on Dan O'Donnell. It was from a manufacturing something. I can't remember what it was, showing a recent poll. And I don't know how accurate that stuff is. But it showed, I think it was, you're like within the margins, like Janet's went down, yours is about the same, but then the undecided went up. So it went from Janet went down, but the undecided went up, and you kind of stayed the same. But I think it was all like within 2 points. Is there still a lot of work to do? Is this buckle up, 12 days left? Or everyone's already made up their mind?
Now, see, coasting sounds really attractive to me. Well, we're not doing that. So it's all hands on deck. And so it is just a sprint from now until April 4th. So my opponent's got all kinds of money to spend, and she's chosen that's going to be her face of the campaign is slickly produced ads. And we've taken a different approach. I want to talk to as many of our fellow Wisconsinites as I possibly can before the election. Because here's the thing, the debate format, you get 60 seconds to answer. That's little more than, well, actually, it's just 2 campaign ads for each answer. And for the judiciary, that's just not enough time. What we do on the court, we don't do slogans. We don't do bumper stickers. We engage in sustained thought, and that takes a long time to do. And so what I like to do is talk with our fellow Wisconsinites in depth about the work of the court and what we're there to do and what we're not there to do, right? Yeah. We're not there to do politics. And so So I think it's important that we spend that time face to face with our potential bosses, because that's the way you get to know somebody. And it's one of the reasons I thought it would be really important to have more debates. We've been invited to over a dozen. We've accepted every single one of them. But unfortunately, my opponent has only accepted the one that we just had this past Tuesday. So she's gonna allow these $1 million produced commercials to do her talking.
And that's sorry to interrupt, but that's really interesting. I've never thought about that. The debate that was held was done in a typical political debate format.
Yeah,
but this probably shouldn't have been. And I'm not banging on them. I'm just saying what I'm all of a sudden now, like I'm envisioning this, are two people sitting on a couple of comfy chairs, not at a podium, and having a discussion, certainly having it moderated, where it's more of a, it's almost like the, baseball postseason where all of a sudden it completely changes. You have this marathon, long baseball season, 162 games.
Right.
5 pitchers starting and then all of a sudden it's like, play a game, you have 1 game to play, and it's what? This is so weird. This isn't really how baseball works. It's like 2 different seasons. So I kind of get that. I kind of think I would rather have seen more of that comfortable sit down. Let's talk about where we stand and how we would approach certain things, rather than what's your view. There he goes. I'm pretty sure I reminded him, in the event that you actually have to go, or to hit the button again. There you go.
Yeah. Now, Ben, if you're tired of our conversation, you can just tell me.
I've had enough. I'll see ya. No, I really like that idea. Yeah, that would have been great.
I think that's right. I mean, this is the kinds of things that we consider in the court. It does require a logical development of thought, and it takes time to do that. And the people of Wisconsin should be able to see their candidates going through that process to make sure that they're not just made out of bumper stickers, that they actually have a good, deep, and broad rooting in the law. And so that's the kind of conversation I like to have, but it takes time. You can't do that in 60 seconds.
Yeah. There was another thing I learned that I didn't know about you. Was during the debate, you had said that you had not taken any money from the GOP. I didn't know that. I think, honestly, I kind of think they just don't have any money, but that's my personal opinion. But what you had talked about a little bit, but again, instead of just a 30-second answer here, why? Right? I don't have a timer or something. Just why did you decide not to? And once again, is that one of those, your campaign's going, but seriously, money's money, buddy. Just, it helps. Just take it, will ya?
So this is, again, one of those things on which I've received advice that I did not follow. And I have a very specific reason for it. So one, I'm hopeful that we're going to win. And I'm looking forward to what it would mean to be on the Supreme Court after having accepted enormous sums of money like my opponent has from a political party. So her campaign is being financed almost entirely through the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. And I think that is destructive to the work of the court. So my view of what the people of Wisconsin have told us to do, of course, is simply to address legal questions, not political questions. And in fact, because of that, politics are poison to the work of the court. Now, one of the things we have to be cognizant of is we not only have to do the work accurately and according to law, being faithful to the Constitution and the statutes that the legislature passes, but we also have to appear for that to be happening. So the facts have to match the appearance. And so if you accept millions of dollars from a political party and you win, then all you're going to be known as is the justice who is bought and paid for by a political party. And then the rest of the people of Wisconsin are going to be looking at it and going, wait a minute. So this is supposed to be a nonpartisan, non-political office, and yet you are bought and paid for by a political party. You will forever be known as a partisan justice.
But
and that's destructive to
your opponent during the debate, and again, I wish they had more time to elaborate on some of these, had kind of used some of that against you as well, if I recall. It was about the pro-life organization, I think it was, or something that, obviously people give money to the campaign or they do their own ads or whatever, and that's how it works. And isn't that similar?
So on endorsements, not quite. So with endorsements, what you're looking for is, what does that person or organization want out of a justice? And for all those who endorse me, what they want is for me to follow the law. They want me to be faithful to the Constitution. And so the conversations that I have with people who endorse me, it is, in a sense, it's just terribly boring, because I tell every single one of them the same thing. And it's the same thing I tell the people of Wisconsin. And it is that the role of the court is not to be politically motivated. It's not to allow politics to influence the work of the court. And that, in fact, politics is poison to the court. And so we follow the sovereign command of the people of Wisconsin, who told us that they just want us to use the existing law to decide their cases without regard to personal politics or personal preferences. And so that's what I tell the pro-life organizations. And because that's what they want in a Supreme Court justice, they endorse me. Not because, I would take a particular position on any given issue that comes before the court, because I don't talk about how I'm going to rule in any given case, mostly because the case isn't there yet. And our responsibility
well, there is that part.
is to look at the case, right? So
there is that. Yeah. Oh, and there he goes again. Well, no, Renee, I'm not singing. But we should have something on. I don't know. I think he's going to be back on in a second. Oh, I should have something queued up here. How about this one? Oh, he's back on. Okay, there we go.
We made it almost through the entirety of our conversation.
I know. But it's still, I'd still take this over the audio from your debate. Because
yes,
that was, seriously, nobody tested that first. I totally get it. Dan, what else do you want to make sure that we talk about? Or how about this? Is there anything, because most people watch these things after, not actually live. If they're watching this from now before the election, what do you want to tell them? Or what do you want to say to them?
Yeah, so what I'd like to say to them is take a hard look at both Janet and me. Listen to the kinds of things that we're talking about, because they're not the same thing. And make your judgment on what you want on your Supreme Court. This is your court. Every one of those seats belongs to you. And you have all the power and all the authority to decide who sits on them. And the decision before us is really pretty stark. Whether we want a politician on the court or we want a jurist on the court. Like I said, I know how I think that question ought to be resolved. But what I'm asking for is our fellow Wisconsinites to exercise that great responsibility that they have to carefully consider what the state's going to look like going forward, depending on which one of us goes to the court. Because, if Janet makes it to the court, then she's going to be telling everyone in Wisconsin what laws they can and cannot have. She's going to be telling everyone what liberties they may and may not enjoy, because the reference point for Janet is always herself, her personal politics. The reference point for me is the Constitution of Wisconsin and the Constitution of the United States. And that's the guarantee that we can enjoy the rule of law. That's the guarantee that we can continue to exercise the liberties that we cherish so much. It is about fidelity to that Constitution, and not doing the work of a politician on the court.
And and thinking about this, I think a danger could potentially be for, and I'm not telling people to vote for anyone, vote for whoever you want. But if you have someone that, let's say, is a politician and you know where they stand on a couple of issues and you agree with those issues, let's say it's abortion and MAPS and some of the other things that have come up. And you're like, yep, I'm 100% with Janet on this. Or in this case, anybody, it doesn't matter, but somebody that would be running for Supreme Court. But at some point, you're going to disagree with that person. At some point, you're going to be like, I don't like this. And you would hope they would just, not have their personal opinion. So you may kind of align with someone right now on these couple of 3 topics. But what happens about the one next year that you don't align with? I don't know. I just thought of that now.
Well, and it's a really important thought, Ben, because once the reference point is yourself instead of the Constitution, that Constitution is gone. It's just gone. It won't come back. There's no universe in which a justice goes to the court and says, well, I'm just going to pay attention to my politics on a couple of issues. That kind of person is always going to have reference to her personal politics. And that Constitution that is built for the express purpose of protecting our liberties is just going to be gone. And I look at the 175-year heritage that we have with the Wisconsin Constitution. And what we have before us on April 4th is the question of whether we're going to walk away from that or not, whether we're going to walk away from all those liberties that we cherish so much. Now, I can't help but think about the sacrifices that were necessary so that we could enjoy those liberties, right? I mean, right now, the biggest obligation that we have in preserving them is to go to a ballot box. That's all. But to get those liberties in the first place, there were people who had to actually lay their lives on the line, pledge their entire honor and treasure, and many of them, you know this as well as I do, most of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence did not work out well for them. They either died in the conflict, bankrupted, thrown in jail. It ruined their lives, but they were willing to make those sacrifices so that we could live in freedom, so that we could enjoy those liberties. Now, the only thing that we need to do to preserve them, to continue with those from one generation to the next, is just get up and go to a ballot box. It's just, in light of what it took to get them, it's just not that hard. But, my fear is there is a possibility that we might just sleepwalk our way through the April 4th election. And that we wake up on April 5th to find out that we have walked away from our Constitution and our liberties. And I don't want to be that generation that walks away from that 175-year heritage here in Wisconsin. I want to be able to pass down to my children the blessings of those liberties. I want to be able to pass down to my children the importance of that Constitution. And I want to see that Constitution be full force and effect for my children and their children after that. I mean, all we really have to do to make that happen is to make sure we all come out and vote. Because I have to think that the vast majority of Wisconsinites really don't want to be dependent on some individual justice's personal views about what our liberties can and cannot be. I think they want their Constitution. And I think they want that Constitution to continue in effect from now and for the next generations.
We talked about that in a previous show. It was similar to law enforcement. I think I used that we want law enforcement, sheriffs and whomever. They're elected, sheriffs are, but, just do your job, right? Enforce the law, etc. Yeah. I don't care where these sheriffs stand on so many issues. Like, what? Who cares? You're the sheriff. Just do your job. So just do that. Right. And I did learn something new. So while you're talking, about you don't want a Supreme Court justice where it all starts with themselves. So I just ruled out Supreme Court justice for me for a career because everything starts with me. So I guess I can't do that job anymore. I'm going to mark that one off the list. Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure knowing you these last show, this one, and here. It's been almost 3 hours that we have spent together. It's been just a privilege getting to know you and an honor to have you on the show. Thanks so much for always doing it.
You're so kind to say so. It has been a joy for me. And like I said, I want to get to at least number 5. I want that special jacket or pin or whatever it's going to be.
It might just be an emoji in a text. That's it. I don't know. That's all we can afford.
All right. Thanks so much, Ben. I really appreciate being on your show.
Thank you. Special thank you to our guest, constitutional conservative candidate for Wisconsin Supreme Court, Justice Daniel Kelly, for making himself available once again to jump on for a chat today. I'll see you right back here on Tuesday when Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald and I will be back for our latest episode of Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy. where I'm pretty sure we're going to be talking about swatting. There was those swatting incidents in our school districts in our area yesterday, and I think a couple more across Wisconsin. So we'll be going over that and probably in a lot of detail. And 1 week from today, March 30th, Senator Romaine Quinn will be back for our monthly chat, but all things going on in Madison and in the 25th Senate District. So until then, for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden saying thank you for watching and have a blessed day.